and welcome to the Motorsport Coaching Podcast, sponsored by Motivate Training and Management. This is a podcast where we talk to drivers and industry experts to help you maximize your performances on and off the track. Let's get started with today's show. Hello crew, and welcome back to season 4 of the Motorsport Coaching Podcast. I am your host Belinda Risley, and today on episode 105 I'm rejoined by Cody Mackay. We last heard from Cody on episode 63. On this episode we're going to hear around how he's been able to engage sponsors in 2022, the role that social media has played in gaining sponsorship, how he's been able to actually grow his social media following up to 51,000 people on Facebook, or Metaverse now, whatever it's called, and how he goes about his work-life balance, being a business owner, a partner, obviously a race car driver, and really the role of COVID and how that's played within his business as well. Stay tuned, guys, right to the end of the show. We do have a special. There's a checklist to download called Getting Started in Motorsport. So if you're new to motorsports, head over to our website, motivatetraining.com/started, and download our free checklist. Hope you enjoyed today's show and looking forward to bringing you so many more episodes in 2022 with different guests. Next week, we're going to have Charlotte Woods on talking around branding. Let's get started.
Hello, Charlotte, and welcome back to the Motorsport Coaching Podcast.
Hi, Belinda. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, the last time we caught up was the 11th of October 2018 on episode 15. What has been happening in the last 3 years in the world of athlete brand?
Well, so much and then so little. Nothing has really changed. I mean, there's been a big pandemic. That was something that happened. And I'm excited to talk about, the changes for sponsorship and everything else that have happened as a result of that. But really, we've just kept doing athlete branding and growing and working with more athletes and learning more about athletes and how they work and what works best for them, which is exciting. We launched a new portal in 2019 called Elevate, which was exciting as well because that's been really helpful for athletes because they can just dip in and out of it and get what they want without having to follow those online steps. But not that much. We've just kept tracking on and that's been exciting to keep working with athletes and helping them build their brand.
And did you actually have a name change since we last spoke, I think?
You're right, Belinda.
Your consultants before and possibly change. I can't remember either. I'm just like going, has it changed?
You're right. That was a really big change. That did happen. I forgot that happened because it happened so seamlessly and it felt so natural for us that we already felt like it had happened by the time it already rolled around. We were previously the sponsorship consultants and then we rebranded as the brand builders. So previously we were just doing sponsorship in the athlete and sports space, and now we do sponsorship and athlete branding overall under the brand builders. So yes, we have had a name change. That would be something that happened in the last few years. I can't believe I forgot.
Okay, I'm here to remind you. It's fine. We are talking about athlete branding. And for those that are new to motorsport, what is athlete branding?
Yes. So the simple way that I like to put it, like the bare basics version of athlete brand, is how people remember you and what they remember you for. So to put that a little more fancy, I guess, it's the impression you make and the impact that you create. So basically, what do people remember you for? Is it the fact that you speak about mental health and you're an ambassador for mental health? Do you enter every room and say hello to everyone and thank them for their time? Do you leave your room with a smile? What do you do on the track that people remember? Do you finish every meet with a big wave? Do you always talk to the fans? So it's what people remember about you, and the things that people most commonly remember and stick in your brain about your brand are passions and interests, your values, your visual style, your message. If you have something that you speak about a lot on, maybe an attitude that you've developed in sport, something like that. That's your brand really, is how people remember you and what they remember you for. And it's stuff that you do on the track and also off the track that people remember you and know you for.
Wow. I love branding. There's so much to it, as you're very passionate about as well. So if someone's looking to get started with branding, what's the first thing to unpack? Like you said, there's lots of things, there's passions and hobbies and interests and colors and values and stuff. So what's the number one step of just getting started for an athlete? And when we say an athlete, we mean like every competitor. So you can say that as well. It's not always like those that have had the best race results or the best outcomes and so forth. This is for any athlete, wherever you are on your journey. Is that right, Charlotte?
Yes, 100%. It's for everyone. Everyone has a brand. And so you need to know it and be in control of it so that you can access opportunities and have this incredible life in and beyond sport. So it's for everyone. Brand doesn't discriminate. It's not just for people with faces on cereal boxes. It's for everyone. But in terms of the first step, it's really basic, but it is important, and I have to say it. You have to identify what that brand is. A lot of people skip and they say, okay, well, I want to develop my brand, so maybe I should just start doing sponsorship or start growing my social media. But you've got to identify what that brand is first, because you'll find yourself in a muddle later on. You'll start going, I've built this following on social media, but I'm not sure what I'm really doing with it. I'm not sure if I am communicating my values. So that's something that's really important, is identify that brand and identify every piece of that brand, because they all work together. So think about, what are your interests? Don't just be looking at who am I on the track, be thinking about who you are off the track as well. So what are your interests? Do you love photography and cooking? Can they be a part of your brand? What are your values? What's your code of conduct? Like I was saying before, do you shake everyone's hand when you enter a room and greet them and have a big smile? What are those things that you want to be known for and you want people to remember you for? That is the most important first step, is that you have that foundation, that base of what my brand actually is, so that then you can go and start building it and communicating it really purposefully and feel like you're in control of it and confident about where you want it to go.
And another great point that you just mentioned there, apart from identifying the brand, is that it'll give you other opportunities for social media content, which I know that athletes really struggle with at a lot of the time, especially those that may only race 5 or 6 times per year. They don't know how to fulfill that social media content calendar. So having all of those other things in place, like hobbies and interests and your passions, it can help come through on that branding side with that content development.
Oh, definitely. That's one of the things that I'm really passionate about, is helping athletes with social media, and athletes who don't enjoy using social media or feel like they're in a bit of a rut. If you build your brand and you identify what it is, exactly like you said, if you've got a few other areas of your life that you can post about, like you love cooking or you love spending time with friends and family, whatever it is, that's a content bank for you. And you'll suddenly see that social media becomes so much easier or so much more enjoyable, because you're sharing all parts of yourself and not just restricting yourself to only posting about sport.
And it's also beneficial to help you gain sponsors as well, because they get to see you. And as we know, sponsors invest in people. And so it helps them to understand who you are as a person.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it helps you also stand out a little bit. They'll remember the athlete who posted about life on the track, but also posted about that love of cooking and was sharing really cool recipes, versus the other athlete that maybe they're looking at to sponsor, who's just posting about life on the track. They'll remember you better because you've got that other little detail that they'll say, oh, I remember them. That's kind of cool. I like who they are off the track as well.
Yeah, and especially if you're seeking sponsorship from that person as well. So if you identify, hey, I want to be sponsored by Smith's Chips, and you can go into the snack challenge around about how to make the perfect snack Smith chip, something like that, something a little quirky and inventive is also going to help you with being identified for sponsors.
Yeah, definitely. I want to see everyone's Smith snack challenge if you get a Smith sponsor. That would be very cool. Something interesting.
That's right. Something different. Obviously, I watched that snack show and quite enjoyed it. Did you watch it?
No. It sounds like a great idea, though. I will go and seek it out now, because I want new ways to use Smith chips. That would be great.
Apart from social media content, and for obviously for sponsorship, for seeking sponsorship. Why else is it important for an athlete to have a brand?
It helps you out throughout all areas of your life, and every athlete has different goals that they want to pursue. So you might not want to go for sponsorship. It might not be your thing. Maybe you're able to finance your sport in different ways. That might not be the goal for you, or it might not be the goal right now. Social media might not be something that you care a lot about right now. You might be a really young athlete, and so it's not a priority right now, or your parents are managing it for you. So you've got to look at, okay, what are my goals? And I promise you, whatever goal it is, your brand will probably help you. So let's say that you really want to do public speaking. Your brand is going to help you with creating content for speeches, sourcing the kinds of companies that you want to speak for, the events that you want to speak for. That's really helpful for you. If you're an athlete that's thinking about transitioning into that career space, your brand can help you with building your LinkedIn profile, learning how to network with sponsors. I did this last year with an athlete who is moving up in their company. They work for a law firm, and they need to make connections with people higher up in the firm with them. But they're absolutely terrified of that networking piece because they're younger and they don't know how to do it and have conversations with people who are 20, 30 years beyond them in their career. And so we looked at, okay, well, what are your brand elements and what are some fun, light discussion pieces that you can use to start those networking conversations so it doesn't feel so sort of suits and tie and scary, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it can help with those sorts of things as well. It's just having conversations with people. But, you know, career, social media, sponsorship, public speaking, those are the big ones. Every now and again, someone surprises me and wants to write a book or do some sort of physical challenge, charity activations. It can help you pick which kind of charities that you want to work for as well. So there's lots and lots of benefits. If you've got a specific goal, I promise you, your brand is going to help you in some way because it's going to help you with the networking side of things, the communication, the leveraging, those conversations that you're having. It's got so many benefits that it can help with throughout your life.
And is it okay to change your brand as you grow your career?
Yes, definitely.
And do you recommend that, or do you recommend?
Yeah, it's completely normal. I don't think that you'll ever 100% overhaul it because that means you've probably had a pretty big change in your life if every element of your brand changes. So it will most likely be subtle little changes here and there. So what I see a lot is younger athletes, sort of under 23 athletes, they start out and they have trouble with that interests and passions piece because they haven't thought a lot or had the time to develop interests and passions outside of sport. And so we'll put in some sort of placeholders, some light things for them to explore and discover. And then as they get older, they start to, okay, actually I've learned that I'm really passionate about mental health. That's something that's been part of my personal story. And so I'd like to start incorporating that now and make it my message and start doing events and speaking and charity activations with that. So if your life changes, your brand should change alongside that, especially if you're on the younger side. That's probably where you're going to see it more, is if you're under 23 or even under 25, you'll gradually start making some changes to your brand. And that's totally fine and normal. It's just you changing as a person and then that being reflected in your brand.
Yeah, and I find that the values change as well. Obviously, a value of an 8-year-old is going to be different to a 12-year-old, to a 16-year-old, to a 20-year-old. So I feel that those values, and then once those values change, then all of those other things that you've just mentioned kind of start to trigger as well, and then starts to move slowly, not into a brand new, but something new and exciting.
Yes,
yeah. They get new logos. They might get new sponsors. They get new motivation for the reason behind their logo, as opposed to just having their initials or something. That they start to feel their brand after a while.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the values piece as well, as you get older, you start to understand the importance of it more as you get older. And so with the branding side of things, you start to really say, okay, I'm really going to try and align my brand with my values, and I'm going to choose sponsors that align with my brand. And so that's a good thing. You'll probably see that the changes to your brand are positive, not negative.
Yes, we like being positive here. We're talking about being positive and building the brand, and one of the benefits of that, you mentioned before about life after sport, and it's a very big topic, not just only in motorsports, but I think in every sport, about, once athletes do hit the pinnacle of their career and they leave the sport through whatever reason, what is life after that when sport has been such a big part of their life growing up. But you mentioned about, branding being an important role and it playing an important part in helping them grow and go forward with their career. How does that help exactly?
Yeah. So after sport, it is such an important and vulnerable piece of your career as well, that time after sport. When you transition out, you need time on the more sort of touchy-feely side of things to develop and spend time on those interests and passions outside of sport as well. So you can use your brand to help do more in that cooking side of things, explore those interests, explore those passions, but also in terms of the career and the transition piece, looking at, okay, well, how can I use my brand and my personal story and my platform to help me in the workforce? Maybe you want to continue doing sponsorship or entrepreneurial activities in some way. And so that athlete brand and profile that you've created for yourself, it's going to help you now, but also throughout the rest of your career, and setting up and using the connections that you've already built in sport. You don't have to throw everything away once you step outside of sport. You can take all of that with you, and thinking about the skills that you've learned, and how you can apply those and how you can make those connections and do those networking activities. I think one of the things I noticed with athletes is they forget how special it is to be an athlete, and that everyone outside of sport thinks it's really, really cool and interesting that you were an athlete. We don't understand that experience if you're not an athlete. And so all the fun little facts and skills and stories that you have, people want to hear them. And so you can bring those into interviews and your resume and those networking opportunities, because people want to hear them. It's old news to you, but it's exciting and interesting to everyone else.
And that's what I keep preaching to everybody out there about coming onto this podcast, regardless of age and experience. Everybody's got a story to tell. But also, like, for social media content, people want to know behind the scenes stuff because they're living their dream, like they're living their fans' dreams. So they want to know about the stories. They want to hear your stories on podcasts. So, if that opportunity comes to present or to be a speaker or to be interviewed, take it and, get that exposure out there, get that PR to help you build that brand behind them. Got one off the quick one for you. Just think about all those things you're saying. What if someone identifies with a brand that they have the same value and they could be an asset to that business or company? Do you have any tips about them contacting them? Not so much about sponsorship, but maybe as an ambassador or just as an influencer, since it's the word of the year.
Yes, influencers. Yes, interesting. That's a whole other world of sponsorship, I feel like. It's got its own little niche. You want to be looking at, okay, well, how do I align with that brand? And so looking for some of those, like you said, more interesting creative activation opportunities. It doesn't always have to be sponsorship. Maybe you look to do some speaking, some internal speaking or motivational talks with their staff. Maybe you can help them with some charity activations that they've got going on. Maybe it is a one-off influencer style kind of relationship. Maybe that floats your boat and is going to work the best for you. But really looking at, in terms of using your brand, okay, what do their values look like and what do mine look like and how do they align? And it's not always, well, they stand for, they're not against animal cruelty, but I am against animal cruelty. Sometimes it's more subtle things. Maybe one of their values is adventure and risk taking, and you're more relaxed and easygoing, and that reflects in your values. That wouldn't be a good fit if you're more relaxed and chill and beachy and their adventure and risk taking. That's not a good fit. And if people saw you align, whatever way it was, maybe it's influencing, sponsorship, speaking, whatever it is, that's not going to click well for people. They're going to think that doesn't make any sense. So sometimes it's those more subtle alignments as well that you want to be looking for.
Excuse me. And we mentioned earlier about the importance of having the brand What is that relationship of having a brand and gaining sponsorship? How does that benefit you?
There's lots of benefits when it comes to sponsorship. One of the big ones is being able to identify sponsors that work with your brand and that align with your brand. And not just identifying the right ones, but also being able to say no to the wrong ones. Again, it can be really simple, subtle stuff. So if you are that chill, relaxed, easygoing athlete, I had this conversation literally like 2 weeks ago with someone. It wouldn't make sense for you to go for a Red Bull. That doesn't make sense.
No.
So you know straight off the bat that, okay, if they were to approach me, it would be unusual if they approached the chill, easygoing athlete. But if they were to approach me, that would probably be a pretty easy no, because it just doesn't make sense. I don't see how we could work together or do fun stuff or valuable stuff together, because we just don't click. There's not that good alignment. So it can help you identify who the right sponsors are and who the wrong ones are. If you're that athlete that really loves cooking, why don't you go and approach a cooking company or, Swiss chips and do some fun cooking activations, and looking at how your skills and your assets and your interests and your passions, how they can help you benefit sponsors as well. So what are some of those skills that make up your brand? Is it writing? Could you go and do some blog writing or some article writing or get them some media attention in some way? And that would be using that brand skill set. So it can really help you look at, okay, what do I have to offer? And also, what do they have to offer me? And does that brand and the values and everything align?
Yeah, and I think there's 2 points there. Sometimes a prospective or athlete, forget that sponsorship is a two-way street. It's not just one way, that if you've got sponsorship, that you're always there for the sponsor. It's got to be mutually beneficial for both the people. And the second thing, I can't remember now, I should have wrote it down, but it was along the lines of...
I'm sure it was good.
I know. One of the biggest objectives I get is that money is money. So you're just saying about things being aligned, and I'm sure without a doubt over the course of your career, you've had that objective as well. So if someone does, like Red Bull, come to you and you are more into yoga, how do you say A, no, or B, when you need the money, how do you say, nah, it's all right, I'll just suck it up? Can you explain to all, we know long-term what the benefits can be, like complete disarray with your brand and not being able to not other sponsors not being able to identify who you are.
Yeah, definitely. It is hard if you need the money, and if it is that subtle little difference of, okay, they're really into adventure and I'm more chill and easygoing, surely I can make that sacrifice. It's not really going to matter in the end. But what you probably will find is that relationship is going to be stressful for you because you can't offer them real value. Exactly as you were saying before, it's a two-way street. You need to be offering each other value. And so it's probably not going to work in the long run. That relationship might end halfway through, or it doesn't extend past year one of that sponsorship contract. And then you're in the same position that you were in 12 months ago, and you've got to go out and seek that new sponsor because that relationship didn't work, because it wasn't aligned from the beginning. And saying no can be hard. Often it is about identifying, who it is, who's going to be right for me from the outset. But saying no can be hard. Sometimes, a nice softener is offering them another athlete, someone who does have that brand that aligns, someone who might need the money or would be a really good fit. But brands are also, they appreciate honesty. And so if you tell them it just isn't a good fit, it's not because I don't like you or I don't think you're a good brand or I don't think we could have fun together. It's just not a good fit. I don't think...
Not a fun person. I'm more into yoga.
I'm more into yoga. I don't think I can offer you real value. And they'll appreciate that. They will appreciate that you didn't want to waste their time. They may even, because of that conversation and your honesty, go on to recommend you to someone else. So it pays off in the long run, but it is a hard thing. If you've got someone offering you buckets of money and it's that subtle difference, that's difficult. So that's why you need to, from the beginning, be looking for the right sponsors and, know who you do want to say yes to, so that you can be able to say no, even when it's really hard.
That's right. And so, Charlotte, obviously with motorsports, as you progress through the categories, you obviously have a lot of personal sponsorships, but as you get into the larger organizations, more of them have the team sponsors. Mm-hmm. How do you go when the team sponsor is against your values? Like if you're a health butt and then all of a sudden you're getting sponsored by Red Bull or by Coca-Cola, but yet your personal brand is that you're a wellness warrior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really hard. It's really hard, and it is something that people come up against. It's not just a fictional scenario. It's a real thing that happens to people. I mean, there is a sense of sacrifice in that you do have to accept that to a degree because you're part of the team and you're part of that team brand, and they have their own unique brand. And, you know, when you sign that contract, you do have to, you know, align with their brand. But you are an individual outside of that sport. And so you can stand on your own 2 feet as well and be making the decisions that are right for you, and the sponsors that are right for you, and develop that brand outside of that team brand, so people know what you do care for and you do stand for. But you can also have honest conversations with decision makers and say, okay, well, maybe how could we make this work? And, you know, bring in your own activation ideas and talk about your values. So having those honest conversations, but that is a really difficult situation, and it's hard to have too much leeway. It's difficult to have, you know, sway in that situation as well as one person of the team. But yeah, understanding what your brand is and what your values is, and doing the best that you can with a difficult situation like that.
Yeah, but it's important to let your team know like what you stand for, your values, who your brand is at, who your personal sponsors are.
Definitely.
We also previously mentioned about off-track brand as well. How important is it around about how our family and friends perceive us? Obviously, I always tell the athletes for social media to try and have 2 social media accounts, one their personal, which is locked, and one of their profile of their racing. But also, I'm very adamant about make sure, you know, your girlfriend's not there posting you sitting in the backyard and the swimming pool having a smoke and a beer in the other hand, or something like that when you're trying to sign a multi-million-dollar deal or anything like that. So, yeah, can you talk us through the importance of your brand off the track and how families and friends can influence that as well, and just how athletes do need to be mindful around social media content?
Yeah, it really comes back to integrity. And if you're doing one thing on that personal account that's completely different to what you do on that public account, if you think you can use your personal account to be sneaky and get away with things, no, you cannot. All it takes is one person within your friends and family. Maybe you have a feud with them. Maybe they, you know, have, you know, different ideas, and they screenshot that post on your personal account, they send it to media or they post it somewhere else, and then it can go gangbusters. And that's not nice. And it really can happen even if you're a smaller athlete. And so you need to be, you know, you need to align that brand offline and online. And so you can't use those private spaces, that backstage, to do whatever you want. So it's also about living your brand, you know, really living it in all situations, and having a chat with friends and family about, hey, I am an athlete, I'm a public figure, people are looking to me, they perceive me a certain way. When we have a party, could you not post me with alcohol or going really wild on the dance floor, or whatever you're doing? You can have those. I know it's awkward because that's sort of like, well, then what do they think of me that I want to hide certain parts of myself? And I'm certainly not saying that you can't have fun in your personal life, but have those conversations with friends and family that please don't tag me in it or post it, because I am a public figure and I'm trying to build a brand with integrity. But the most important thing is, don't think you can get away with everything on those personal accounts.
Not about tell.
Yep.
But yeah, like when COVID first hit, I mean, I just automatically start thinking about all of those rugby league players that went to the bush and they thought they were above the law, and even though they were at the bush, there was 5 of them around the barbecue. There was one grand final with 2 girls, but you know, like there's so many stories. They didn't think they were going to get caught, or it wouldn't happen to me. That it has happened, but yeah, I know certainly for some careers that have been. I was going to say demolished, but yeah, they're devastated purely because of social media content.
Yeah.
When I was younger, we didn't have it.
Yeah. And I also think there's been less of a conversation piece around online integrity in the last 5 or so years. I know it was a big thing with high school kids and younger kids. And it was, if you were ever photographed with a glass of wine on social media, you'd never get a job ever again. And then it's sort of dropped off in the last 5 or so years because we think everyone knows that you have to uphold a certain standard on the internet. And then I see a lot of younger athletes really going wild and posting all sorts of stuff. And there needs to be another conversation piece and education around it because they don't know. They haven't received that sort of almost like scaremongering for them, like what can go wrong.
Yeah. So is that what you're working on next, Charlotte?
No, we have done a couple. We do have an online integrity piece to help people with that. But yeah, it is really important to have that online integrity, and what you're doing in person, make sure you're doing it online as well.
Yeah, and when I'm working with the teams now, we're certainly putting in just the basic social media policy and what that means for the team, even if it's just a team of 2. But, like we said, it's not just the drivers, it's the race team. So it's the family, friends, volunteers, like everyone that's involved in that team that has to adhere to the policy, whilst they're engaged with that race team.
Yeah, definitely. That's great.
Otherwise, it's no good. All right. So after we've identified what our brand is and we've worked out who would like to be aligned with it as far as sponsorship goes, what else goes into developing a brand?
That's the fun part. Then you get to go out and actually use it and activate it. So then you need to be looking for, okay, what are the opportunities that I actually want to go after? Might not just be sponsorship. It could be public speaking. It could be career-wise. What do you want to go for?
Paid ambassador. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It could be all sorts of things. Might be writing a book, might be doing articles, building a profile more generally, whatever it is. Then you need to go, okay, well, how can my brand help me with that? So let's say you do want to do writing. You want to have some sort of, media profile. You know that writing is one of your skills. It's one of your interests. What are some things that you could talk about? That's when you can look at those brand elements. Okay, I keep coming back to cooking, but you're really good at cooking. You really love cooking. Maybe it's healthy cooking, specifically healthy baking. Could you align with a food magazine and do some writing and some recipes for them? So looking at, okay, well, what are the opportunities that I want to go after, and how can those brand elements help me look for those opportunities? So making the connections. And also looking at those communication pieces. That's a really big part of branding, is how can you communicate your brand? Because it's not always going after commercial opportunities. Sometimes it's having conversations, making connections, posting to social media, creating resumes and sponsorship proposals and writing your bio and taglines and messages and all those sorts of things. So looking at what are your communication pieces, and also how are you going to leverage that brand and use your elements to make those connections between those opportunities.
There's so much to do. It's so daunting, isn't it?
I know. Take it step by step. You don't have to do everything all at once, because it can. And that is a good point, actually, because athletes, you are so busy. You're doing training, school, trying to have a social life, maybe raising kids. Like, there's so many things. So you don't have to do it all at once. You might want to get sponsored, do public speaking, be an ambassador, do charity activations. Do you have to do it all in the same year, or could you just start out with charity activations and then move your way up? So you can prioritize things and start out small, but be thinking of what the bigger picture is.
Now, as we mentioned, there's been a pandemic for the last couple of years. And although a lot of things have changed for you, how has the branding changed for athletes over the last 2 years? Has there been a mind shift or change, like with sponsorship, with branding, with the way people have branding themselves? And I guess, has it gone more online, or has people still been capturing those businesses that have been exceeding in COVID?
Yeah. Australia has been lucky for the most part. So we do have a slightly different experience to the rest of the world, but one of the big changes or shifts, or the main shift we've seen is probably that move to online activations in terms of sponsorship and using your brand, because we've had to a little bit, but also because there has been such a big technology boom that we've been able to see, okay, well, I could do Zoom talks with corporates, or I could do Instagram lives for my sponsors, or I could do TikTok. That was a big one that really blew up last year for athletes during the Olympics, which is fun. So we've seen, we've had to shift online more, but also people have seen it as an opportunity to have online activations, build their profile online. I think TikTok has been a really big one. That had a moment during 2020. That flew off, and everyone used it sort of as like a coping mechanism, I think, including athletes.
Yeah.
And so we've seen them have a lot of fun on there and build profiles and build followings, especially during the Olympics, and get to share their story there and bring in a new audience, because that's one of the things that athletes struggle with is reaching beyond that sporting audience and bringing in a regular person and trying to get them involved in the sport. And TikTok has really allowed for that. You saw that during the Olympics, a lot of people saying, hey, I've never heard of table tennis before. I had no idea that was a sport, but now I want to go and try it for Paris. So we saw it bring in new people and get them interested in sport. But definitely there has been more of a shift to online opportunities because of COVID.
And I guess that's another really important point that you just made about more people being online. So therefore the markets are getting more saturated with people being online. So being able to stand out, to have that uniqueness and being able to showcase who you are through your hobbies and passions is going to be able to get through all of that influx of new people on there.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a big thing with brand, is just being able to stick out a little bit, being able to be that athlete that they say, okay, well, I know that they're a soccer player, but they're also a soccer player that's wears really eccentric hats. And so that's what I remember about them.
Or Lewis Hamilton, who's now taken to wearing dresses. So
really?
Yeah.
I had not seen that.
I'll send you some photos.
Thank you. I'm going to have to Google them myself as well. I have to see them immediately now. Okay. I did not know about that.
His brand is changing.
Okay.
But I guess talking about him on a positive note, he has been very forward about change, about obviously about the gays being in motorsports. It's all about we race at one now. It's a big rainbow. He's been around the George Floyd thing about, we race at one is the same slogan that they're running. But he's been very, at the forefront of that.
Fantastic.
Also, Vettel has been at the forefront of environmental and has been staying back, cleaning up after a race meeting. You've seen him walking through, picking up rubbish and stuff. He's not on social media, but he does all of those kind of good social environment things. So
yeah, that's great. And people remember that stuff. They often remember that more than the exact results that you got. It's some of those behaviors and what your reputation is. That's how people will describe you to other people, to brands that they talk to other fans. We remember those
getting employment at the end of it as well. Again, finding a career and getting employment after life, after sport. It's those kind of personality traits that's going to take you with you.
Definitely.
Do you have any tips or tricks? You've given us so many ideas about getting started with your brand development, or tell us a little bit more about Elevate and the services that the brand builders offer.
So we do education and development for athletes, primarily through sporting organisations, but we do have resources for individual athletes. So there's Elevate. We've got a sponsorship course. Elevate covers really everything under brand. So we do athlete brand on there, social media, career and development related to branding, using your brand for career and development. What else? Public speaking, all sorts of stuff you can find on there. So it's a pick a path, decide what you are most interested in, and then go in and dive in on that one. So you can really explore whatever you want, which is nice because every athlete's different. Not every athlete wants to get sponsorship or do social media. So you can go in and have fun with what you want to. In terms of tips that I'll leave you with, let me think. I think one of my favorite ones, and I've sort of talked about this already, but is to start small but think big. So know what the bigger picture is. What are your end goals? Do you really want to be known as a motivational public speaker who talked about mental health and had big impact in local or rural communities? Maybe that's the end goal. That's the big picture for you. But that's a lot to work on. That's scary to start out with.
That's your BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah. So you need to start a little bit smaller than that.
Yeah.
And so be thinking about, okay, what are the first steps? What are the easy things that I can do? Maybe it's starting to talk about mental health on social media. Maybe it's doing some networking within the local community, getting close to government and local councils and making connections that way. Maybe it's just developing a content plan. Like, you can go as simple as you want to, and just have that end goal in mind, but be chipping away at it gradually. And you'll notice over the course of, a few years, a few months, a few days, you'll slowly start to see, oh, okay, I'm getting closer and closer to that bigger end goal, but it's felt very manageable because it's just been little chunks along the way.
Lovely. I'm just writing some notes there. Why are you passionate about athlete branding?
Oh, so many reasons.
You've been doing it for so long now.
I know. It's been
started as a uni gig. It's just
Yes, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Started as a little shy uni student, and now here I am.
Writing books, lecturing to Japanese Olympic committees.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. But I think the thing that has always made me passionate about it is just the confidence boost that I see in athletes. Mm-hmm. When I came into it, because I don't have a sporting background, so when I came into it, I saw athletes the way that every single person does, as these ultra confident, have everything together, can do anything because of the performance results that you see. And so you sort of see them as superheroes, but they're actually very real, vulnerable people. Mm-hmm. And so coming in and being a support person to them and helping them achieve their goals and get more confident in what they're doing and align their brand with those opportunities, that I just love to see. And I keep up with all the athletes that I mentor online afterwards. I just quietly stalk them and see what's happening for them, because I'm like right there cheering. I'm like, I'm so happy that you had that success. I'm so happy you got that sponsor, every single one. And I remember everything about them and all the little details. Sometimes I forget their names, but I know what each of their brand elements are.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy to see you succeeding on those things. So it's nice now, because it has been quite a while, and getting to see everyone, people start to achieve some of those big end picture goals, those big goals, which is nice.
And what is your goal for 2022?
My goal for 2022, I actually really want to write more. I think writing more. That's one of my goals. So I've started a newsletter to share stuff about Athlete Brand. Mm-hmm. Which has been something on my mind for a little while. I'm a bit of a hypocrite. I talk about people building their brands, and then I don't do a great job of building my own because I'm too busy helping other people. Yeah. And so I've decided to write that newsletter and put that out into the world, and to just share that with people, because I think I have some things to say in this space that would be helpful to people. So that's probably one of my big goals for this year.
To build your personal brand.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between a personal brand and an athlete brand?
In terms of the elements, not really. The end goals, yes. Athletes are probably more focused on building public profiles, and versus a regular person like me, not as much. On a smaller scale, maybe I have different goals that I'm working on. Someone who works in corporate probably isn't looking to go viral on TikTok, but maybe they're looking to go viral on LinkedIn or something else. So I think the goals are different, but the general elements are not that dissimilar.
Lovely. Well, Charlotte, always a pleasure to talk to you. Hopefully I'll talk to you before the next 3 years.
Yes. Yeah.
And hopefully this is going to be a fantastic year for sports everywhere in the world. Again, it's going to be interesting just with the Beijing Olympic Games coming up, like what's going to happen there with Australia, with COVID. Obviously, we've got Grand Prix starting around the world in lots of different sports. So fingers crossed we get to have our fans back at the racetrack, at the swimming pools, at stadiums, arenas, everywhere around the world, and we get sport back up and running and back to what it was in 2019, really, and get these athletes sponsored and, have these sports to continue to love for many more years to come. And thank you for everything that you do for the athletes. Really appreciate it. And again, we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Have a fantastic year, everyone. I hope you achieve all your goals.
Well, thanks everyone for listening to this week's show. I really hope you enjoyed that one as much as I did. Now, remember, all the show notes with the links and the specials mentioned in today's show are available over at motivatetraining.com.au. If you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you could head to iTunes or Stitcher, type in Motorsport Coaching, subscribe, and leave us a review. Each week, I'll read them out and you'll go into monthly draw to win a fantastic prize. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at motivatetraining.com.au or head over to our Facebook page at Motivate to Tea. Until next time, take care.